currently, I am the executive board member at large in maintenance for ATU Local 113. I represent approximately 4,000 maintenance workers that work for the TTC, anywhere from janitor to coach technician, which is a bus mechanic, plumbers, roofers, carpenters, train mechanics, streetcar mechanics, cleaners, various things. I also sit on the national body now. I was elected as the Financial Secretary Treasurer for ATU Canada, which is our national body. I also sit on the executive board for Toronto and York District Region Labour Council, which is the biggest labour council in North America. We represent over 220,000 people, which is in Toronto and York region. And I also sit on the executive board for LEC, which is Labour Education Center, which is sort of like a feeder program into the trades for people that are marginalized and racialized. English might not be their first language, so we try to give them tools that equip them so that they can enter the workforce almost seamlessly.
Hey, we didn't scare you off the last time.
No.
Honestly, I'd like to start off by saying I'm honored and privileged to do this again. Surrounded with great company. So let's get into it.
Yeah, baby.
Good.
Look
I
at
guess he has people over today or something. He's got good company.
he's yeah. Who's he talking about?
Somebody's over maybe.
So I'm on vacation this week, actually,
No way.
from work, but it's a working vacation. And we'll get into a little more about what I've been doing during this week and what I plan on doing for the rest of this week. But okay, I'll just get into it.
But let's just go from there first.
Are you still with the TTC?
He's not with the TTC. He's with the union that represents members of the TTC.
More important than
so
the
Aleem
TTC.
is coming in today as a perspective of transit and the plan that we have in the city of Toronto. We have an upcoming municipal election. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get labor type of union stuff. Whatever Aleem wants to talk about, we're on board. He's the guy to talk to. But let's just before we get into all this, a working vacation. Please describe the difference between a working vacation and
normal life. Oh.
Okay, so let's start off with this. So currently I am the executive board member at large in maintenance for ATU Local 113. I represent approximately 4,000 maintenance workers that work for the TTC, anywhere from janitor to coach technician, which is a bus mechanic, plumbers, roofers, carpenters, train mechanics, streetcar mechanics, cleaners, various things. I also sit on the national body now. I was elected as the Financial Secretary Treasurer for ATU Canada, which is our national body. I also sit on the executive board for Toronto and York District Region Labour Council, which is the biggest labour council in North America. We represent over 220,000 people, which is in Toronto and York region. And I also sit on the executive board for LEC, which is Labour Education Center, which is sort of like a feeder program into the trades for people that are marginalized and racialized. English might not be their first language, so we try to give them tools that equip them so that they can enter the workforce almost seamlessly, if that makes sense.
Bro, do you know this is why you have to have a working vacation, man? You got too much shit going on.
Okay, so
You're
getting
doing
into
too much. When I was going to get my answer there, but you gave it to me.
That's a working vacation.
So getting into a working vacation. So I just want to explain. Because of all my roles, I have meetings day and night, 8 days a week. I took time off from my regular position, which is the ATU Local 113 position, to canvass this week for city council candidates. So we do have a municipal election coming up soon. Advance voting is available right now. And if you don't advance vote, then I need people to vote on October 24th.
Can't I go and like mail in vote, but it's like a Dropbox?
Yes, you can mail in your ballots.
Yeah.
But
but there's also a
Seems
drop box
legit,
too,
yeah.
right? So I don't actually have to go into a place to advance. I can literally just get a ballot, fill it out, and go and drop it off at any time starting like last week or something this week.
I believe you had to do that in advance, but it's
Yeah.
possible to still do it now.
Yeah.
Can I vote for TK with this system?
If he's
Not
running,
for the election.
No, but can I say I'm TK and I'm voting for?
no.
That would
the
be
City
fraud.
of Toronto elections won't let you do that.
That would be fraud. That only happens in the States, Daryl.
So what do they mail us our ballots? Did we get
course.
that already?
They sent you a voter's card. If you give me a second.
I don't know where
can
that
show
is.
you
Yeah, I got it. I know what it is. Yeah, you
Did
got
you
a
get
voter's
it?
card. It's registered to your address.
Correct.
And then you might have had an opportunity to say, I'm going to mail it in.
You can just walk into like a community center, right? Show them
Correct,
your
sir.
ID.
Certain
Yes.
days, yeah.
I voted
And-
for the first time last election.
Welcome to the UrbanToronto Pro monthly report. I'm economist Ash Nababi. In this month's report, developers proposed 5.48 million square feet of gross floor area in 9 new development applications to the City of Toronto. This represents a 25% drop in GFA proposed over the same month last year. Developers also proposed 13% fewer units, as well as 14% less residential GFA per unit. This decrease in activity was largely driven by interest rate hikes by the Bank of Canada, but borrowing costs weren't the only thing rising in 2022. Continued inflation meant construction costs were also on the rise, as well as drops in demand meant increases in uncertainty about the future of the market. For a complete breakdown of these numbers and figures, as well as up-to-date news and information about the development industry in the GTA, visit urbantoronto.ca.
And
Provincial election?
I don't even remember who was I was going for Ford. I think I
Yes.
voted for. I don't remember.
Okay, it's never
Didn't
too
make
late
a
to start.
difference, but
never too late.
hopefully this time it will. Let's go.
So
Who
I
are we
want to tell
backing?
you.
Who are we backing?
I want to tell you this, okay? I know for the provincial election, we had significantly low voter turnout, which gave the Conservative Party a majority government. I am a little biased, but that's okay. So I won't get too much into my politics, but we will talk about politics.
But how do you know those people who didn't show up wouldn't have all voted for Conservatives?
I actually don't know, but I know
Right?
what the voter turnout was.
Yeah, so maybe it still would have worked out the same way.
It's quite possible. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it is very possible.
Just being the devil's advocate here.
You're
That's
such
fine.
a devil.
Yeah.
That's why we have these conversations, right? Like it's important for people and like I mean like from every spectrum to understand the significance of voting for elected officials. I'm in an elected position, so I understand it completely. But this is how we impact change. So if you want, like the question we ask people is, what do you want your city to look like? Okay. And I'll give you examples. Do you get your garbage picked up?
Yes.
City function. Do you take the TTC? City
No.
function.
I just did it. It was fantastic.
I'm glad you said that.
I took the Shepherd line for the first time ever.
Yeah, it's good.
Other than the stairs,
The nice line.
it
Yeah.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I was actually in the ward yesterday with City Councilor Shelley Carroll. So she is the incumbent. She's seeking re-election again. I was actually out at her office, dropping literature off in Toronto community housing and talking to people about the importance of voting in this upcoming municipal election. So
I took a video on the TTC the other day of a guy screaming at a baby that was crying. It's pretty interesting.
So a lot of things happen on our system.
I mean, the baby should know better that there's other people on the
He
ride
thought
with them.
so. He thought
Yeah.
so. You should go on my Twitter and check out that video. It's amazing. And then it just ended, and like nobody really realized.
I hear there's a shortage though. There's a shortage this election as well, and the shortage this time is candidates.
Shortage of candidates.
Yeah,
correct. So there is significantly less candidates.
I feel like there's less boards like on everybody's lawns. I don't see a ton of them. Do you? There used to be like things everywhere. Lawn signs, vote for this guy, vote for that guy. There's only like 6 this time.
So I guess it all depends on where you live.
Yeah, that's true.
Because certain areas are really populated
Littered.
with signs.
Yeah, I see more on one corner than like ever before.
Really?
Like one corner, it'll be
So
like
weird.
each guy has got like 5 or 6 signs. But maybe I think you're just not looking the same
I
way
don't pay
before, Darryl.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be an issue as well, right?
But I remember actually the other day driving and looking and seeing like where there would normally be like a ton and just seeing a few and going, wow, I wonder maybe it's not that close. Anyway,
they'll ramp it up more.
My perception is usually
what are the
skewed.
big topics? So you were going down that road already. What's important to you? What are the hot topics for this year's municipal election?
Okay, so you're talking to a transit rep. So obviously, number one on my priority list would be public transit.
What does that mean, though? What does that mean? Number one on your list for public transit is what?
Okay, so we want more accessible, reliable, safe transit. Now, there are a lot of things going on, but let's talk about the big one, we'll call it.
The screaming babies.
Eglinton Crosstown.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about this. Is it open?
It is not.
Oh, really?
So, and they are already working on the Finch Crosstown, which is in the west end of the city. And look, if you look at just what's happened in the last couple of years, all right? So we had a huge world-changing pandemic, which, in my opinion, in the city of Toronto, more specifically, but everywhere in the world, but more specifically in Toronto, showed austerity. So certain areas were not, and certain people were not given the same luxuries. Maybe luxury is not the word, but vaccinations. Listen, whether you wanted them or not, that's a different story for a different topic, maybe for a different show even. But how many people had them accessible to them? Okay, in neighborhoods in the city of Toronto, certain areas were given priorities. Certain people had more access to vaccinations, where other people in other wards of the city did not have that. Then that also showed a big gap. So not just when it comes to vaccinations, but people were isolated, right? Everyone was. You couldn't go out and do your normal things. And there was a huge financial burden on not just our city, but our province and our country. Now, that brings us to municipal elections. We are going to be, there's a budget for the city. They don't have a lot of money. I'm telling you, they don't. So things like that you may not use, but people around you, and things that you don't even think of that you use, are going to see possibly service cuts. For example, transit, healthcare, public services. So like libraries, city programs for your kids, summer camps, after school programs, things like that. And you know what, to people, I don't have any children. So those things, but I have aging parents like many of us do. And I want them to have access to those things because as they get older, I want them to still be involved with their community. I want them to have those options to go to play crib or ballroom dancing at our local community center. Like these programs may not get the funding because of the shortfall of money. Now, when we talk about transit, they've put in a lot of money into the Eglinton Crosstown. And I know we're talking about
who's put a lot of money into the Eglinton Crosstown.
So that is a provincial project. That's a province project. Metro Links.
Yeah.
But the city has a big part in what that means. So for example, now the Eglinton Crosstown, when it's up and running, it's dedicated tracks. Okay, which in my opinion isn't the greatest idea where it's located because it's in the middle block. So my grandparents have to cross a major street, Eglinton, to get to the middle island to get on transit, which is considered the fast lane. I don't understand why they wouldn't have done it on the outside, the curb lane, so that none of
like
these
in
people,
Europe,
so that none of these people have to cross major traffic, and transit is always in the slow lane.
Yeah,
right. That's what you want.
Yeah,
That at least that's what I would want, right? So But if you look at what happened with Eglinton, so people
Who plans
speculated.
this stuff? What were they thinking?
Well, they modeled it off of the St. Clair
Correct. The right away at
streetcar.
St. Clair.
Yeah.
Correct.
And they didn't learn their lesson because that wasn't operating long enough, I guess, for them to get that feedback. And they probably designed this Eglinton LRT years ago.
Hey, not only that, but look,
Yeah.
it's about a funding model as well, right?
Still dumb.
It's easier to rip out 2 center lanes or 3 center lanes than it is to rip out 2 outside lanes. You're there already.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. You know what I was thinking you were saying? I get it now. On the outside, one east, one west.
The curve.
I was thinking both
like
east
the bike
and west
lanes
on the south side.
Correct.
That's how it is in
Similar to the
Europe.
bike lanes.
No, it would be in the bike lanes. But no,
Yeah,
the bike lanes are way more important.
Are the bike lanes even a topic in this municipal? I hear people talking about it. And is this really, is somebody going to vote because of the stance that a councillor has on bike lanes?
Bro, have you ever like opened your door by accident and a biker be nearby? These guys are serious and they will go crazy.
I think transit's way more important than bike lanes.
Absolutely.
I think property tax is way more important than bike lanes.
So we're going to talk about that as well.
All these things
I'll tell you about the bike lanes, right? So I was talking to a city councillor candidate who's running in Danforth, in that area, and they were telling me about how there's bike lanes, and they were saying how that when they were talking to one of their constituents, a constituent was really mad about the bike lanes because their elder parent had a stroke, and because of the traffic constricted to 1 lane and having priority bike lanes and Cafe TO, I think it's called, where they have like those outdoor patios set up.
Yeah.
Their elderly parent didn't get to the hospital in time.
Wow.
And passed, unfortunately, because the ambulance couldn't get through the traffic.
Yep.
Right? Which is like, so I'm not saying that everyone's pro bike lanes, but there are people that are anti bike lanes.
I think on the Danforth, because Taste of Danforth was canceled specifically because of these bike lanes, that's going to be a hot topic. Right? In other areas, not as much. And the Danforth, I can imagine someone making a decision or some councillor candidate winning or basing the whole platform is off of bike lanes and actually getting a good amount of support.
We're gonna get rid of all bike lanes if you vote for me. Is that
so a lot of people are looking at the environment, and I think a lot of people are looking at reducing their carbon footprint. Okay. So transit, bike lanes, like, these kind of things speak volumes.
You know what I was thinking? It's funny. The other day, like we only have 1 car in our family, but I grew up, there was 4 of us in my house and all of us had cars, right? Like I grew up, each one of us had a car in our house when we were 16 or 18, I forget. And now it's like there's 4 of us and 4 driver age people in this house, and we have 1 car, and we're more than able to manage that. And we take the TTC and Uber.
I have a question, right? And this I think applies to you too, Darryl. And Aleem, you'll have the data on it. Is the reason that I don't use transit because of the area that I live in? Or is that the factor? Like, if I live somewhere else, would I use transit more?
Well, you live in an area where buses are the transit, so that sucks.
But even your neighborhood too, Darryl, like even yours, you've got to get to the.
I go around to Shepherd Station. It's like 2 minutes around the corner, right? And where I used to live, I was a 5-minute walk from Finch Station,
it was close,
right?
Yeah.
And that's when the use of the TTC kicked up a few notches, right? It's that proximity too makes it like lovely to use. But like, so I had a meeting downtown. I took the subway down, was beautiful, but then I got on the streetcar. On the streetcar, I was like, I could walk faster than this if I'm running late. I should get off and go, right? So it's like the subway is so beautiful and accessible and it's fast. I mean, until there's a screw up, that's always a pain in the butt. But like, if you live too far, it's just buses are your options. I got to think that that's a serious deterrent, unless you have to, that you don't have a choice to take a bus. I got to think.
So 70% of the TTC's ridership comes from BRT, bus rapid transit. So those are people, TK, in our neighborhood.
Yeah. 70%. So
Has to be.
not-
That's all you have.
I
You
could
got-
live then anywhere in the city, like downtown, and I would still drive my car because that's just me, my
Well,
job and my style, whatever.
Listen, I think that's a contributing factor, but I think if it was more accessible for you,
Yeah.
you might resort to it a little more. Like,
Mm.
you know, maybe not to go get your groceries because you don't want to lug 4 bags around on the subway system.
But I could.
You
should see
could,
me
you
carry
always
grocery
could.
bags.
And you know, you talked about the need. So if you look at what's going on right now, and there's labor shortages across the world. I mean, across the world. I come from skilled and some semi-skilled workers. Now we're noticing, like in the trades especially, okay, we're having a hard time finding, attracting, and retaining talent. Now, I'll just talk about facts. If you look at the private sector unions that have just negotiated their collective bargaining agreements, some of them have gotten upwards of 8% increases.
Yeah.
Why is that? They are building. They need to build. Okay. So, like, I just have some things, but like, housing affordability remains a serious issue in the GTA.
What was the increase? Did you say 8%? That's not even enough, though. Like, it's crazy, and it's not even enough.
Preaching to the choir.
Inflation right now is at what?
I'm feeding the fire.
Right?
Yeah.
So the province has introduced something called Bill 124, which caps provincial unions at a 1% increase for wages and benefits.
Ooh, it's worse. It's worse than being a landlord. This is horrible.
Okay.
Amazing.
So
really,
with that being said,
criminal.
I'm saying
it's
that passed, or that passed?
Yeah.
How did you guys let that pass? How's that possible?
We tried, but you have a majority provincial government, and they're going to do things.
Whoa, we gotta bust this up, right?
They're gonna keep.
Hold on. Did we answer the question? Who are we backing?
What was the platform again when the Conservatives ran? They want to build, like, they want businesses to come. We're open for business.
Open for business.
We're open for business. That's the message, right? Come here and your employees will work for less.
But what business? What business?
What business?
Because if you look at some of our friends that own small businesses, some of them are really thriving, and others have shut down. Like it's crazy. Like and like, you know, like I'm looking at just, if you look at what's happening, look, we've done polling, okay? And 71% of the GTA believes the municipality should focus on increasing supply of homes for sale and rent, not reducing the demand. Okay, so what does that mean? You're going to have to build more. So I start off with what kind of city do you want to live in? So we want people living here and working here. So there's zoning laws that are very important. This will be a topic in the upcoming municipal election. So you have employment lands. Everything's zoned. So in certain areas, you have zoning laws that say, hey, you can only have employment lands here. Now, I'm a trade unionist from the labor movement. I'm not advocating for getting rid of employment lands, not at all. But there are old factories that are sitting there not doing anything. So do I say, hey, get rid of those and make them condos? No, I'm not okay with that. But we maybe need to look at mixed zoning. So you want people in your area, your ward, to work and live in the same area. Okay? Therefore, people have the option of using transit to get to and from work because it's accessible, and they don't have to go far. So it's important. So you want employment lands to stay where they are because you want people. And I think I mentioned this on the last time I was on the show, but every $1 invested in public transit in turn brings back $3 into the local economy.
Is that true?
100%.
When the LRT goes 3 times over budget, can that still actually be the case, or is it based on the original budget?
We haven't done that study yet, Daryl.
Yeah, come on. We haven't.
We're going to figure that one out, all right?
We haven't been approved to study
all the other studies. This is what the number is.
It's not up and running yet, right?
Yeah.
It's not up and running. And if you're looking at it, like a lot of businesses, are changing. Like,
But that
things
just
are,
sounds like a bunch of shit, though. That $1 to $3 thing. It can't be possible, especially.
listen, we've done this.
Can
We
it?
talked about it. We did this last episode. The value of real estate that's increased near those transit opportunities, the job creation, the
Is that what
population
it's
growth,
counting? All
everything
that
that
stuff?
they can count, of course. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Fine.
So these are some of the things, like, and if you look at it, like, look at the Danforth, like, like the subways. Look at Bloor. Like,
Danforth zoning. I just had a meeting about that the other day. It's the dumbest thing ever. You can't do anything because all the mixed use lots are 100 feet deep. And then you have angular planes coming from both sides, and you got subway stops and major transit hubs, and it's like you can't do anything.
yeah. So look, these are things that are going to be hot button topics, right, in this upcoming municipal election.
What
And
are they
it's just
talking
like,
about? What are they saying about this?
Yeah, it's a real estate show. What do you know about the housing topics in the election?
Give
So
us some insider scoop here.
affordable housing. So I talk to city councilors on a regular basis. It's a big part of what I do. Political advocacy is a huge part of the union movement and the labor movement. We need to advocate for our people, and the best way to do that is by lobbying and building relationships with our elected officials. So if you look at certain wards, affordable housing units. So now there are things like community benefit agreements. So if you're going to build, let's say, a huge condo, let's say 40 stories, there is something that we have put in place that states that you have to hire at least 10% from that neighborhood. So people in that neighborhood have to work on that project.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
Yikes. Have you seen some of these neighborhoods they're building it?
Hey, listen, I'm just telling you, because then the people
Whoa.
can't.
It's hard enough to find
live
people
there.
already, though. Isn't that like going to limit the amount of
This is
available labor?
sounding silly.
No, because you can get people from outside, but you want people. And I'm not saying you just hire somebody that walks down.
Hey,
Hey, you live here?
Do you know how to work a
Like they have
cement
to
mixer?
have skills, qualifications. Like, like we're looking for certain individuals.
Right
Another
now,
thing,
though, aren't we grabbing anybody we can hire? Honestly, like you're saying, but this is a thing. Like,
It's a
look
good
at this-
idea. It makes
I don't know if
sense.
it's a good idea. Or
No,
it makes
it's
sense.
in theory it makes sense that community gets to benefit from any construction and all that kind of stuff if we have
Sure.
an
Yeah,
abundance
yeah, yeah.
of labor, right?
Yeah,
The issue
well,
becomes the labor shortages.
plus
but
it's about work-life balance too, right? Like, listen, some of us have the luxury of working from home, and with COVID, a lot of people get that luxury. Some people don't actually think it's a luxury because they don't want to spend more time with their family. And you're noticing people can't unplug. So I'm getting emails at 10 o'clock at night now, because these
Welcome
people
to
are
our
taking
world.
care of their kids during the day
Yeah.
and doing what they have to do. And then at nighttime, when they put their kids down, that's their time to get onto their laptops, answer emails. And like, I'm not expected to be working for my employer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I'm one of those people that has, well, I might have an addiction to work, but that's okay. I'm a
You're
workaholic.
committed. No, you're a very
But this is
strong
how it is
advocate
now.
for your what are the union people called that you represent? What do you call them?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The members of the union.
Yeah.
What do you call them?
So my membership?
They're not your constituents. They would be
No,
what?
they're my membership.
Members.
Your membership. Yeah. Okay.
Members.
So your members. Exactly. Yeah. So, you're a strong advocate for your members. You got to do what you got to do.
I have to be. That's why I'm elected, right?
Yeah.
Like, listen, yesterday I had a membership meeting. I'm on vacation, but I still went.
Is
Like,
membership up or down?
Right now, our numbers are actually pretty good right now. During COVID, we had 0 layoffs on the maintenance side.
Really?
Okay? They did lay off a couple operators, but they're all back now. And we're noticing that the TT is hiring more women and people of color. Okay, especially in driver, like operator roles.
You see what's happening here, though? We got women, people of color. They got to live in this neighborhood. It's like it's thinning the skill pool considerably. Potentially, it could be opening it up too. But I don't know. Do you need to make decisions based on all of those things? Is this really where we're at?
So I think you have to. Look, I work for a good company. Okay.
Mhm.
Our labor relations suck with our company, and I have to say that I work for a good company. I really do, because of my wages, my pension, my benefits. But things are changing, but that's okay. That's a different story for a different day. But the positions that we're hiring for, like, let's say an operator position, I've got to be careful how I say this, but it's a semi-skilled position. They don't need to go to college or university to become a driver.
Mm.
Okay.
So we're not trying to win the World Series. We're just trying to fill some seats.
Listen, at the same time, you want the operators similar to police, similar to fire, similar to anything. You want the people in those positions to reflect the neighborhoods that they live in and work in.
I don't care about that, bro. I want my police and my fireman to be the best fireman possible. I don't care if he's black or Iranian or a girl or thinks it's a girl. Like, I don't give a shit. I just want him to put the fire out.
So I get that.
Save my shit.
I get that.
Fast.
But society's changing, and that's no longer acceptable.
This is
I think in the communities that he's talking about, Darryl, they feel differently.
I'm sure they do. Yeah. I'm sure that isn't going to be like people will not like that I said that, I'm sure. Right?
No, listen.
Okay. No one watches this show anyways.
Well,
no, don't say that. Don't say
all
that.
three of them.
But Aleem, the housing part of this, sorry, I just want to make sure we stay and finish this one side. This labor issue, I mean, and everything else too. This is sort of because it's kind of related to transit, right? Like you're saying, work from home or work near your neighborhoods or work in your neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff. This is what you're leading to here. Is like, this is the platform, is how can we allow for more jobs to be created in the neighborhoods that the people live, therefore taking stress off the subway and transit systems, requiring less transit overall.
That's
so
interesting.
that people can all have a better and more enjoyable city to live in where they want.
But that's crazy because they're given the density where the transit is.
Less cars on the road, right?
Less cars on the road. So I'm happy because there's less cars for me. I'm not impacted in the higher density neighborhoods.
And you know what?
And you don't need the transit, but you're right near.
Yeah. And most of us,
what the hell is that all about?
Most of us care about work-life balance. Okay. So like, you want to be able to work and come home and spend time with your family, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at your proximity of where you live and where you work, the closer you are, the less time you spend in your commute. And if there's reliable transit that's accessible to you, then you can jump on the system and be at work in 10 to 20 minutes, and you're back home in 10 to 20 minutes. Therefore, your commute isn't an hour and a half driving from Bowmanville to Yorkdale Mall, which takes you an hour and a half at peak rush hour in the morning. And you finish work and you're like, oh, and you drive back in peak rush hour, getting back to Bowmanville, for example. When you get home, you're tired, you're frustrated, you've been sitting in traffic. You take it out on your family. It's human nature.
It seems like this to me, Aleem, and I definitely am not the expert on this topic at all. But it seems like what we used to promise in the campaign would, it was Scarborough subways, and you're gonna have a subway, you're gonna have this walk down into the subway, you're gonna get right to work just like the people on Yonge Street do, right? Then everyone realized, okay, that's not possible, right? Like, we can't do this. And so we've got some other alternatives. The guy in Bowmanville isn't thinking that's gonna happen any day soon. So in order for a campaign to work and a platform to be attractive, they're now saying, like, look, we know we can't get you any closer to your job, but perhaps we can bring more work closer to your home.
So if you look at Go Transit, they're going out to Bowmanville now, because those people are screaming, hey, how do we get to work? I don't want to have to drive an hour and a half.
How do I get to work, or why did I move to Bowmanville?
Well, that's an issue too,
or
right?
both.
And it
but a lot of construction guys, right? That's their thing.
It goes back to housing affordability.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
what are they doing? What are they doing?
So
now, housing affordability.
So when we talk about municipal elections, right? Like, topics that are going to be of importance right now, no city councilor, not the mayor, because it's not popular to talk about, but property tax. I'm telling you, You're seeing inflation going
low.
up. You're seeing interest rates climbing. And I don't know if you saw, but in the States, I think yesterday or today, 8.2% after 5 interest rate hikes. Like, listen, we typically follow suit. The stock market is taking a shit kicking. Like, you know, real estate in Toronto, if you look, the market is, I don't know, I'll leave this to you guys, but I'm going to say,
Tell us, what is the market?
I think it's plateaued a bit, right? Like, you're seeing a slight drop in prices for detached homes, like, and something else that has been proposed. And if you talk to a lot of city councilors, they won't admit to it, but there's whispers about a proposed luxury home tax. Okay, so what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah, so if you're in the upper echelon, let's say you live in
over 3 million.
Is that it?
Well, listen, it's still being talked about right now.
Yeah.
But the city is in a deficit and is going to need money.
Is this how we know if people are in the upper echelon, if they have a $3 million value house or more?
It's going to be like the new bragging rights, right? So instead of getting like, you know, like whatever type of car or clothes or anything like that, you can just
so like
walk around
Warren
like,
Buffett,
damn this luxury tax.
Warren Buffett wouldn't
luxury taxes.
He wouldn't qualify because he lives in a little piece of crap still.
Well, he lives, but what does he own? Right. So, but like these are things like, you know, and they're not going to talk about this prior to an election because people are already trying to make ends meet. Like, look, my workforce, and I got to get out there and talk to them. So I was out on night shift last week talking to a member, a young individual, really not that young, but 29 years old.
That's fucking young.
Well, younger, okay, who has less than 2 years seniority. Sorry, I'm just silencing my phone. That has less than 2 years seniority and was saying how he's living with his friend, okay, in his basement and giving him $1,500 a month, okay? He makes good money with us, but he's saying, Aleem, I'll never be able to catch up. I will never be able to save money for a down payment to buy a house in the neighborhood that I rent in, where I want to continue living because my friends, my family, my routine is here. He says, I think I might be living in this basement for the rest of my life, as long as my body will let me stay. And this is a person that has a decent job, good pension, good benefits, good wages. But the housing affordability crisis in Toronto is crazy. Like, I mean, like it's ludicrous. People can't afford to live in our city. So there's a lot of speculators, okay? And if you look at the Eglinton Crosstown, people bought thinking that, hey, in 3 years, 5 years, that, hey, once I buy this property at a discounted rate and this transit plan comes through, I'm going to be making money hand over fist. Not knowing we're going to enter a global pandemic and that the Eglinton Crosstown was going to take way more time than what it is.
A little more time.
So the speculators now some of them are eating crow because they've overextended now. So what does that mean? Right? So now I think if I remember correctly, we talked about Kingston Road in Eglinton.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is at the start of Eglinton, right? If you drive on Eglinton right now, it's a disaster. A disaster.
Some parts are a disaster. Like if you go west of Kennedy, yeah,
Kennedy is a
fucking mess.
It is, right? It is.
I just picture people running across and getting electrocuted by those tracks. Like it seems just so. And the maintenance of the grass has got to cost the city like so much money. Like who?
I don't understand why they're even
up
doing
with
that,
this.
But I don't know why they're doing
so
that.
Dumb.
But if you look, like those are dense areas, and majority of those people, look, if you look on Eglinton, there's tons of buildings, tons. Now, those people that live in those condos, apartments, typically, and I'm not saying everybody, but typically are trying to make ends meet. So if they can, they got to afford a car, they got to afford parking, gas, car insurance. Those are 4 things. If you do your own budget, and I don't need to know what that number is, but you're doing it in your head right now.
You got to have a phone first, a phone and internet's before all that stuff these days.
So, but what are those 4 things cost you a month? Now, if people are working, okay, let's say they all don't have good jobs. They're not all doctors and lawyers. Some of them are public servants. Can they afford that? No. So you have to rely on transit. You have to, just because they can't afford it. So you talk about how transit impacts real estate and how affordable housing impacts the people in our neighborhoods. So these are they're direct correlations with transit, with work, with housing, and so on and so forth. So these people don't want better transit. They need better public transit because they can't afford those 4 items. Right? So these are like important things. And I'm just telling you, like you talked about, Darryl, you talked about voting in the last provincial election for the first time. We have had generally low voter turnout. People are disengaged, disenfranchised. They're saying, oh, it's not going to make a difference who I vote for. I'm just going to tell you something. City council, municipal politics, factually, has the lowest voter turnout. Okay? Lowest in comparison to provincial elections and federal elections. Now, some of these votes are decided by less than 100 votes. Okay? So we, as the labor movement, advocate to get people elected. We tell our members, we tell the working class, hey, we can win these elections and change what our city looks like. So we put out endorsements, right? These are things. So elections that are won by less than 100 votes, less than 1,000 votes. If we have, and we've done this research, I've post-coded my membership. So I know that in Scarborough Rouge Park, where myself and TK live, I have approximately 400 people that work for the TTC or have worked for the TTC. Okay? And if I can get 50% of them to vote, that's 200 voters, that could decide an election. At the same time, the post office union has done the same thing, and they have 373. I don't know the exact number, but I'm just saying. And the IBEW, okay, which is electrical workers, has 242 people. And if they can get 50% of their membership to vote in this upcoming election, and I just want to show you something. So we go through a vetting process. So like we have candidates endorsed in each ward that will help the labor movement. Now they come through a process with us where they sit down, we ask them questions on affordable housing, public transit, contracting out, garbage, things of, so it's not just like, oh, we like this person, we'll support them. We look at their voting records, if they've been on city council, how they vote. So a big topic was,
ooh, dig deep, right? You find out you're saying one thing, but you're doing another.
so we also endorse school board trustees.
Yeah. You know what I did was really cool, Aleem?
What?
This morning, just because I wanted to read up on a few things before we did this show, I went onto the Toronto Star, I can't remember what they call it, but it was basically to tell me who I should vote for. So I entered a 30-question questionnaire, and I filled out all the answers, what's important to me, what's not. And then they gave me the candidates that I should vote for based on mayor,
it all leads to the same guy, bud.
No, they were good. And they even shared with me like what those candidates had responded to the same questions that I had responded to, right? Like it was pretty neat.
Sure it does. Okay.
No, it was good.
I'd love to sit down and have a coffee with you and talk about that.
Yeah, it's not. You think it's skewed? You think they just put the people on that?
Come on,
they want to win.
The Toronto Star has no influence at all, and they don't use it for anything.
I'm pretty naive, so it's definitely possible.
Listen, I don't think you're naive, but look.
But I bought it, and I bought it, but I filled it out, and I definitely don't agree with the person that they said was the mayor that I should choose. But I did agree with the counselor.
So weird. Must have been super in depth.
It was a close run. It was a close.
So the polling.
Did it tell you to vote for Punwasi for mayor?
No, he wasn't on the list. Him and I don't agree.
So polling costs money. So who's doing the polling?
Who's
Okay?
doing the polling? Yeah.
That's very important. I'm telling you, very important.
Yeah.
This guy decided not to answer. Yeah, he refused to answer. I don't know what he wants to do.
And so like,
how come this other candidate's not on my my
I didn't see his name on the list.
Yeah, what's going on?
So the city of Toronto, and I'm not saying either way, right? But who's paying for the polling? And then the information, like are they polling everybody? They can't.
Why isn't it just a Twitter poll? Why can't we have to be verified on Twitter, and then we do a Twitter poll, and only verified accounts can vote? Boom.
I don't have Twitter, so I can't vote.
And I can't vote
That's
either.
right. Yeah, neither of you can vote. Sorry.
I hate Twitter.
Have a nice day.
Aleem, devil's advocate.
But hold on, if I can't like get to the voting booth by the time I'm supposed to for some reason, I can't vote either.
You can mail it in. You can go to advanced polling.
How do you trust a mail-in vote for real?
How do you trust a Twitter vote?
How do you trust any of this?
How do you trust the lady with the box and the little envelope? You know, you never
I didn't trust her. Last time, I thought she was going to steal all those pencils.
I'm joking. The election system in Canada is very rigid.
It's very, very good, actually. But
yeah,
you're right.
Aleem, devil's advocate, and I want to hear your answer. Yeah, and this is for you. Okay, how do your members know that the questions and polling that you've done with the candidates that you guys endorse has been done correctly and honestly without any bias?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that, and there's a two-part answer there. Okay,
does anybody have to pay to get in that pamphlet there?
No.
Okay,
no, not at all. First of all, I'm in an elected position, so I would hope majority of my membership trust me. Okay, that's why I've been reelected. Hey, they see my work ethic. Whether they like me or not, they a lot of people respect me and see what I do sort of behind the scenes, and some people see it up front. So they trust me. So they might not be a part of that process, but they trust me. But the second part to that answer is not all of my membership, okay, that I represent is pro-labor. So some of them might have their spouse or their parents that are what they may believe or what they are part of the upper echelon. So they might own businesses and who knows. So I can't tell them, oh yeah, you should be voting pro-labor, because some of those issues that impact their house directly aren't pro-labor issues. Okay. So some of these people, you know, maybe their spouse or they're in the trades and they have a side business, who knows? But daycare isn't an issue for them because some of them live in a nice house and have a live-in nanny. So daycare is not an issue. So when I talk about these issues, it's not like my membership, I'm not Moses. It's not like a part to see and everyone just follows me, right? Some of my people don't agree with my politics. So it's hard. But I'll tell you, it's the best thing for us is when I walk into a work location and I talk to somebody about politics and they argue with me because they're on the other end of the spectrum. I love that. That means that that person is engaged, whether they see my point of view or not, but they're engaged. The problem is when I walk into a work location and I talk about city council and who we're endorsing, and the person says, and they walk away. That sucks for me because they're not engaged. So I got to do a better job of getting them engaged. I got to talk to them about, hey, you know, look, I'll give you a really good example. Downtown core, okay? How many splash pads do they have?
Not 20. Enough, I'm guessing.
I think tons, because in Scarborough Rouge Park, I don't have that many. So the people that live in our area, TK, okay, a lot of them are renting basements, families, and don't have access to those same privileges as the downtown core.
The splash pad has become a God-given right in the city of Toronto.
Buddy, Darryl, if I'm living in a basement with my family, I don't have access to a backyard pool. I don't have that. I don't have that. So my kids, like every other kid, are sweating in the middle of summer.
But what did we do before there were splash pad parks?
So now what
the housing crisis wasn't as bad.
More
people had backyards.
Right?
More people had backyards.
So where are people flocking to? Because now you look at it and it's like, hey, you want those amenities. You want You want your kids to have access to a public library. You want them to have access to a splash pad. You want them to be able to take transit to go to concerts.
So what are we talking about? Are we talking about people that are making like 6 figures or living in basements in Scarborough right now with their families?
So the average,
or are we talking like a $40,000, two $40,000 incomes combined? Like, what are we talking about here?
So the average income right now in Toronto for the average person,
yeah,
$47,000.
47,000 for the average. That means there's a lot of people under $47,000,
and people above, but average. So that's your medium.
Sure.
Can you afford a house with a pool at $47,000?
Can you afford anything?
No, can't afford anything.
How is it so low? How is this possible? And then how is it
seem really low?
How is it okay, so the numbers are ridiculously low, obviously, like in real life. And now their way of killing demand is by destroying the labor market, right? This is their plan, as far as I can tell. By destroying demand, but thereby destroying the labor markets and the need for more demand. Like this is gonna get like pretty messed up, won't it? This is gonna be a real like this end game is just a disaster right now. Like we have labor shortages, but they're trying to destroy the demand, and finally wages are starting to get up to a point that might be able to afford somewhere to live, and they're just going to destroy all of that. And places won't get more affordable. You won't be able to afford a place because rates went up. That's obvious, right? So what the hell's going to be? It's going to get worse now.
So I don't have.
We can't vote our way out of this thing right now, and especially when we give. How long is a term? 4 years, 5 years here?
4 years, 4 years.
So a 4-year term, you can't get anything done in 4 years, and then you're gone after that, and all your momentum's destroyed. Like the system is stacked against us. It's a systemic problem. What can somebody do really in 4 years? Like that actually makes a big difference right now. Like, look how long it takes to get anything through anywhere.
So I'll tell you, I'm elected into a 3-year term.
3-year term, yeah.
So now, and I think about this all the time. I'm elected by my peers. I'm in a rented seat. So if I lose my election, I go back to the floor to those same working conditions that I helped negotiate. Okay. So in the forefront and the back of my mind, I constantly keep that in there, saying, hey, I need to do what's best for my members, similar to what a city council has to do. What's best for their constituents? Hey, these people, affordable housing. So you talk about 4 years. Well, if you do some, because you're not going to please everybody.
This is the
some
thing.
of the right things.
Yeah, you can do some stuff. But like, look, even your incentives are not in line with the government's incentives, right? So like everybody is pushing and pulling in all these different directions. And like, listen, let's be honest, the labor unions, like they are a benefit to the members for sure, and maybe to the community at large, but they work against the community in some cases where they push up labor and prices and things. And like there are detriments to having labor unions as well. They're probably more beneficial overall, but like there's all these constant pushes and pulls in different directions. And like in 4 years, if you're pulling one way, right, because of your constituency, and the MP's pulling another way, what gets done in 4 years?
So look, I'm going to disagree with you, obviously.
Yeah,
you know
please.
What I do for a living.
Yeah.
I have to disagree with you, but I can give you facts. Look at what's going on in the United States. People are dying. I mean, dying to get organized. So Amazon, Starbucks, but this stuff's hitting the front page of.
Sure. No, and it's a big problem. And listen, I get it. So, but okay, so now Amazon, let's say they unionize, right? What happens to pricing at Amazon? Because it's not going down. And what happens to the consumers? They have to absorb those prices, which means it keeps the spiral going. And there's nothing working together to find this equilibrium point. Everybody's pulling in their own direction. That's how the system works. So you are pulling to the benefit of your constituents, which makes sense. And the MP's doing the same thing. And me in the private sector, I'm trying to make the most money and do the best for my people and myself. And TK and his association, like everybody's pulling in their own direction. There has to be a different system, Like, we can keep fucking around within the system and doing a little bit here and a little bit there, but the system is the problem. The system and the incentives within it are totally
Maybe the system
misaligned.
is what you just described, Darryl, is the pushing and pulling, and the people who have the best
It
representation
is.
for pushing and pulling are the ones who get the best end of it, right? And that's
Yeah,
just,
but we don't get the best people in the best positions, right?
well,
So
that's
we
up to
don't
the
get
people
that.
to elect. That's why it's so important to vote. That's why it's so important to have the right representation at the union. That's why it's important for us to care about these
But
things,
you're not.
because this is the system. I agree
But
with you.
you're voting for Sonny Chu to get like Ford in. You don't want Sonny Chu in, but he's the
Well,
conservative guy in your area. You have to vote for to get the guy you want in. So you got these layers
because
of
he's
idiots.
going to think about but he's going to think about my best interests for my particular area in regards to the topics that Doug Ford, for example, is in charge of.
Maybe
right?
not. Maybe
Public
not.
transit, affordable housing, things
Yeah.
like that.
So you
Yeah,
want
but maybe
somebody who
they're
supports-
misaligned on a couple of important things. But you
what you
want
do is
Ford.
you go on the
It's
Toronto
it's a
Star
mess.
website, you answer the questions, and they'll tell you who to
And
vote
they'll
for.
tell you who to
That's
vote
it.
for.
Okay,
Okay.
so Darryl, just to put things into perspective here, okay? And I agree with you. Hey, maybe unions do drive up the cost of labor, but what drives
That's
up the
a big
cost?
input.
But listen, what drives up the cost of consumer spending? Because right now, how much are you paying for gas? How much are you paying for a house?
Yeah.
Everything's going up. So you could say, oh yeah, the labor movement is driving up. But even if there wasn't
Oh, it's a
the
piece
labor
of the
movement,
puzzle.
those prices are still going up,
They
and
have
more
to.
people are getting left behind. That's why
Sure.
there is a big push for people to get organized, because during COVID,
But it's a hamster wheel. Do you see? It just it eats itself. It just constantly feeds and eats itself into oblivion. This system.
so I get it, but you know, like I don't want to insinuate this, but I'm just going to try to paint you a bit of a picture.
Yeah.
I live in a neighborhood where there is community housing. Okay, those people shop at the same grocery stores as me, pump gas at the same places, go to school with our kids. I don't have kids, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These things impact our neighborhood. Now, if you are well-to-do and your kids have more luxuries, their peers, their classmates, see those things. Okay, and I'm not talking about a communist market, but the wedge, okay, that's being driven between the rich and the poor. Back in the day, there was a huge middle working class. Now you're starting to see that shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. So you're either rich, like really rich, or you're really poor. And you know what? Those people are in our neighborhoods, the rich and the poor. And it's like, hey, you know, like I am a big advocate for public school. Okay, like I think our kids should go to public school. I grew up in public school. That's how I met TK. Like, you know, like, hey, I have a lot of great stories. Okay,
I'll
Daryl's
bet,
laughing.
yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a good example about TK. No, but these are things.
I was
So,
the
like,
poor
you know,
kid,
when
right?
Yeah.
when
Come home with one
when we-
shoe. Come.
when we talk about these issues, like
At least you had
these
one shoe.
these municipal politics impact directly our neighborhoods. Directly, whether you agree or disagree or internalize or factor it, it directly impacts us.
Sure.
I'm just telling you, you know, and then it's like, all right, Darryl, me and you don't have a great relationship. TK invited me onto the show. Why is that? Because I have a relationship with him. I've
Sure.
built that relationship with him. Similar to what I'm telling you is I advocate and try to build relationships with city councilors. So when an issue comes up regarding public transit and they have to vote on an issue,
Yeah.
it's not this guy from ATU Local 113
Sure.
office. It's hey Aleem, how are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were talking about how, you know, the system. Well, I invest time, money, resources into helping certain individuals that are going to advocate for us.
Sure.
Okay?
It's called lobbying.
That's exactly what it is. And
Right.
and these are important things. So when I advocate, and labor issues are also affordable housing issues. So like I'm just telling you, people are screaming that there isn't enough affordable housing in Toronto.
It's there. I don't disagree with anything you say. Like, these are all major monster problems that all need to get solved. The problem is the solutions more often than not, or the people that are coming up with the solutions aren't qualified to make these solutions. Like, they're not like you who are in the actual community and pumping gas with the people. They are like in a way different community than their constituents, and they don't. I mean, they all. Again, it comes down to the incentive. Like, what's the MP's incentive to stay in office, right? So what's he going to do? Whatever it fucking takes to stay in office, right? This is how elected officials behave. Like, nobody goes out and says like, oh, I did my part in 4 years, I'm out of here.
But that's how you get reelected or not. So the system, again, is what is there to protect people, right? It's like, if you don't do the job, this is the same thing. We actually talked about this for commission for real estate. But we talked about it for commission for real estate. So I'll give you, if somebody is not providing a service that's at the level of what their fee is justifying, right? They will not be able to stay in business. And therefore, it's an open market when it comes to real estate commissions. Politicians are the same thing. It's an open market. If you don't do what you say you're going to do, John Tory right now is not overcommitting on transit. He's basically just saying like, we're going to basically do exactly what we've already promised, and I'm not promising you guys anymore, because he's been doing this now 2 terms and he doesn't get anything more done than he thinks he can get done, because he knows how challenging it is. And all these other people are like, oh, we're going to da. And I don't know what those promises are, but they're making promises they can't keep, which means if they got elected, we'll find out later on that they were lying and we wouldn't elect them again. So I do think there's a system. I don't think the system works. I don't think it's perfect. But I think that the system's there for a reason, and Aleem knows the rules of the game. I think he's very good at it. That's why he's elected. I think you know the rules of the game, Darryl, very well on the development side, and that's why you're getting your jobs done, like your deals done and stuff like that too, right? There's systems in place here.
There's horrible systems in place all over the place, and I think, listen, we can make little bits of a difference. That we can make these little changes that are important. There's no doubt. But if we're all like we're like doctors, we're putting band-aids on things instead. Like we're not treating the problem. We just keep treating all these symptoms. Somebody at some point has to get to the root of the problem. And again, it's like, where's even the incentive to be a politician, for God's sakes? Like, you don't have, but this is the thing. You don't, we vote for the lesser of 2 evils. We don't go, that guy's the fucking best, I got to vote for him, he's going to save everything. It's like, oh, fuck, who are you voting for? Yeah, it kind of makes sense to me. All right.
Some wards only have 1 counselor.
It's crazy. And the people that are empowered,
they don't even have anybody to vote for.
Oh,
so I'm just
sad.
Listen, I know we're coming close to that end, but I just want to tell you, I'm starting to see it more and more. Like I'm not giving you
younger people.
I'm giving you facts. Like I'm in these neighborhoods. I'm talking to these people, and more people are screaming at the top of their lungs about being left behind.
So, are they going to vote?
Listen, I'm telling you, I think you're going to see majority of those people that are being left behind get out to vote, because they can't do anything else.
There was one guy on the mayor. There was one guy on the mayor list. I looked up all the candidates for the mayor, and it's like a long list, right, for mayor. And his email was like such and such at themayor.com.
The mayor.
Like, I'm just saying, right? Like, I'm sure it's whatever, it's creative, but I'm just, giving you insight into anybody can run for municipal election, right?
When's the next one?
Anybody can run for any election.
TK, let's do this next time.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got a good platform.
For mayor.
And Aleem, when you decide to run for politics, because you're great at what you do, we'll have you back on the show, and we'll make sure that people, our listeners, our viewers, our wonderful subscribers, if you have subscribed, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please ask yourself, dig deep in your soul, why are you not voting? Because basically that's what you're doing by not subscribing.
Yeah, you're not voting for TK.
Yeah. And we'll have you back, and we'll always give you this platform, Aleem, because wealth of knowledge.
What a great conversation.
We appreciate
really appreciate all the time and effort. It's going to be done without the 2 of you as well. So
absolutely.
thank you for having me on again.
We're a small part.